Hello, welcome to this month's Crafternoon, sponsored by Barnard Construction. We are using little looms to create a small weaving. This here was my first attempts and my examples, and I don't think they turned out too shabby. I'll teach you just the basics in this tutorial, but if you want more in-depth tutorial, look up Lucy Jennings on YouTube. She runs a channel and website called The Creativity Patch and has a bunch of great videos on the basics. I learned everything from her, basically. Okay, here is your loom. The first step is to take the skinny string and wrap it around the loom. So take a piece of tape. I'm using washi tape, but most people have painter's tape or masking tape available to them. And tape one end down here towards the bottom. Alright, now take your skinny string and wrap it all the way around the little indents. Okay, when you get to the end, leave at least one full board's length and cut off the excess string. Peel off your other end that's been taped down and tie a tight little square knot in the middle, keeping it as close to the board as possible. It might help to have somebody else hold this string down while you tie a knot. So once you've tied your double knot, just go ahead and tie more knots just to make sure it's really secure on there. You don't want this one to fall off. Cut off these excess little tails, flip it over, and you're ready to start weaving. So first grab your paper straw, put it underneath all of the strings and push it up. We will start weaving here at the bottom. So the skinny strings that go up and down are called the warp thread. The yarn that goes side to side is called the weft. I wish they didn't pick two words that started with W to name these, but what can you do? So thread your needle with your first yarn color. Starting on one side, thread your needle over the first warp thread, then under, then over, then under, until you get through the whole first row. Pull the yarn all the way through until you're just about at the end. If this yarn is too much to manage and you're getting tangled, just cut it in half. It's about 15 feet long, so that's a lot of yarn to worry about. So then once you get to the end, leave about 2 inches of a tail and then push it all down. And there you have your first row. Take a look at your last warp thread. If your yarn went under the last one, now it needs to go over to start a new row. Now there's a few tricks we want to employ in order to make sure the weaving doesn't get too tight, or it will get skinnier as you go up and it'll be more like a triangle instead of a rectangle. So the first trick is to make sure that the loop at the end is not too tight. You can see if we pull it too tight, it's going to pull that end string in and it's just going to get skinnier. If you did pull it too tight, just pull the yarn back a little bit. The next trick is to make sure we don't just pull the yarn super straight across, super tight. That will also compress the string so that makes it super skinny as well. So my trick is to hold the end loop here, pull it so it's nice and angled, and then start, while holding this end, start pushing down the weaving. You want it to be like a gently firm tightness, so not too tight. Obviously you don't want it super loopy, but about that is a good tightness I found. Okay, so I'm reaching the end of my yarn. I cut mine a little shorter so it was easier to use. So I'm going to thread it a little bit more and then I want to leave about an inch or two at the end for a tail, and that's short enough, so I'll leave it there. And then I'm going to thread my next color into my needle. So I've threaded in my new color, and I want to see what my last yarn did. It went underneath this warp thread, so I want this color to go over that one. So over, under, until I reach the end of the row, pull it all the way through, and I want to go ahead and leave a little bit of a tail there too, and push it down. And then just continue on with your rows like you normally would. So you don't have to end your color at the end of a row. It can be pretty much anywhere on the board, and you might want to even incorporate it into your design if you wanted like a little bit of an angle or something. Just continue weaving back and forth and change colors until you're satisfied with the size of your weaving, and then I'll show you how to end it. So here I am at the end. Normally I'd make a bigger one, but this is just for the video example. So I'm going to do my last row and then end my last string at the end and leave about 2 inches of a tail to work with. There's 2 ways to finish off your tails. I'm going to show you both ways. So the first way, I'm just going to go to the very last column here and thread my needle down like 5 or 6 rows or so, and then thread my needle and then pull it through to hide that loose end. And if you pulled it too tight and it squishes, just kind of fluff it back up and cut off that loose tail. So I'll do that with this end as well. Now for these loose ends that sort of come in pairs, you want to do a square knot. So a square knot is just a fancy double knot. So first take your right loose end over your left and tie your knot, and then take your left loose end over your right and tie a knot. And do that for all loose ends, and then snip off the extra. So I tied all the knots, and now I'm just going to snip those ends. You can flip it over and cut through all of these strings. Pull it off the board, and then flip it over, and you have your almost finished weaving. Be a little careful with it, or your first or last ends will start to unravel a little bit. I got a little wild, I guess. So take the skinny strings 2 by 2 and tie them into a square knot again. So right over left, then left over right. Then I'll take the next 2 and do the same, and I'll go all the way around until they are all completed. So once you have double knotted all of your skinny strings, then you can cut them down to whatever length you want. On the first one I did, I left a little length, but to kind of shoot out, I bet it would look better if the string was a little thicker. And on this one, I don't know if I love it, so I don't know what style I'll go with. I'm going to leave these ones kind of long, I guess, and see how that looks. I changed my mind and cut them kind of short. I still don't know which style I like. I'll have to experiment with that. But once you're done, you are all completed. You have one little weaving. We included tiny little black hangers, so you could use it as a wall hanging, or you could put it on your desk and use it as a coaster, or like a little doll blanket or something. But either way, you're all done, so enjoy your new skill.